What's up, guys? So last night I went ahead and watched Doctor Strange in a theater full of people. In fact, I think the show was mostly sold out. And this was only at 5 p.m., so I can only imagine how full the theaters must have been for later showings. But anyway, I went ahead and I watched the movie, and after I was done, I texted my other friends who also watched the movie, and we sort of had some interesting thoughts about the movie that I figured I'd share, as well as some criticisms that I've heard from other people that I wanted to share my opinions on. Now, a lot of people have been saying good things about Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is a good movie. However, I think it's also worthwhile to point out the flaws that were in the movie and sort of talk about them, give them some light, and not just glaze over them because this is an MCU movie, which tends to happen. I've realized that MCU movies tend to get a bit of a pass when it comes to their negative flaws, unless the movie is really bad or filled with a ton of flaws, like the Eternals, which even though I kind of enjoyed it. But yeah, these are the things that I thought didn't really work for Doctor Strange. So first off, we have is an issue with the pacing. Now, this video is going to be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, I recommend going watching the movie and then coming back to see this. But the movie starts off with a fun action scene, but you're not given any context, you're not given any background as to what's happening, which is fine. But it feels like this movie was like a second part to another movie, or that I sat down in the middle of another movie that was already playing, which didn't really sit right with me, but that's a creative choice and I can get behind that for the most parts. The movie starts off with a fun action scene and the pace is very fast. You're having all of these different fight sequences, and then America is being sent to a different dimension, a different universe, and then she lands up in our Earth with Doctor Strange. And then all of a sudden the pace slows down when you have Doctor Strange attending the wedding, and I was like, okay, they're trying to give us some background and they're trying to, give us an update as to what's going on with Christine. But then all of a sudden you get back into another fight scene, so the pace picks up again with America and Doctor Strange, battling out that giant squid. And then once they've done that, the pace slows down again, which I can give them a pass because they're introducing the Scarlet Witch. And then you have this giant battle with the Scarlet Witch against Doctor Strange and all of, Wong's army, the Sanctuary. And again, the pace picks right back up and I'm excited, I'm having fun. But then as soon as they lose and Doctor Strange enters another universe, another multiverse, it slows down by a lot. And the entire time I was wondering, aren't you being chased by Scarlet Witch? Isn't there an imminent danger that's going on? Why are you slowly walking around? Why are you slowly having a conversation when you need to solve the problem ASAP? And that's the most frustrated I've ever been with an MCU movie, right there in that moment when Doctor Strange and America are walking. Because you guys just came out of a big battle, right? And now how can you all of a sudden just pretend life is normal, joke around and stuff? Why are you not in a panic, in a hurry, trying to stop the witch? Because if she gets these powers, it could be really bad. And so ultimately this problem comes from the pacing. The pacing just goes up and down and is all over the place. And normally, movies tend to have that. But the thing with Doctor Strange is that when it gets fast paced, it gets really fast paced. And those are the best parts of the movie. But when it slows down, it tends to get really slow. And they're just not as good compared to like Spider-Man. Right, in No Way Home we had fast paced scenes with the actions. But with the slow paced scenes, let's say, when you had the three Spider-Men talking with each other, that was still pretty fun. However, that's not here in Doctor Strange. None of the slow-paced scenes are fun except for the Illuminati. The Illuminati, for me, was good, but in a way it felt kind of cheesy and fanfare. But honestly, I don't think that's a fair criticism. I think they were trying to definitely appeal to the fans, and I can see that. After all, you're making a movie for the fans, you're not making a movie for the critics or the Academy, right? I'll give them a pass, but for me it was a bit cheesy. But I was hyped to see John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic and to see Captain Carter. Now, another issue I had with this movie is the fact that this movie was touted as a horror movie, yet this never felt like a true horror movie. And the weird part is that if you said it's a horror movie and then decided to go against it and just focused on a regular Marvel flick, right, I would have been fine with that. The problem is that you see that there are some moments where the director Sam Raimi tried to put in horror elements, and this movie tried to be a horror movie, yet it didn't do a good job, and that's where I think was a big misstep. I think if you had completely avoided the horror element and just made it as a Marvel flick, that would have worked better. Because the problem is that you're not committing to either end. You're not committing it to being a full horror movie, and you're definitely not committing it to being just a regular Marvel flick. Definitely a minor criticism, but definitely something that stood out to me and did disappoint me just a little bit, because I was expecting this to be a really good horror movie. The other problem I have, and probably something that is hard to explain, is the fact that this movie just feels, the stakes don't feel that high, right? Even though causing problems in the multiverse and having the ultimate power to control any reality should be. Yet, I was never on the edge of my seat as I was with Thanos. And I know people like to compare every villain to Thanos, but Thanos did put me at the edge of my seat, and the stakes did feel high. Yet here they for some reason just didn't feel high, and I couldn't tell you the reason why. It might be because Doctor Strange was talking about the possibility of Wanda just causing the ultimate chaos in the universe, right? Yet Wanda, from her perspective, we were only seeing she interacting with her sons. So it's kind of hard for me to imagine how Wanda could have caused ultimate destructions and problems when I'm only seeing Billy and Tommy. I wish they would have done a better job of emphasizing what are all the things that could go wrong if she gets this power. Unfortunately, they didn't. And another thing is the fact that Thanos was given 2 movies, right? We had 2 movies for him to basically cause a problem, to kill half of living organisms, and then another movie to bring it back, right? And for a problem that big, it makes sense. Yet, in this movie, which can be argued has a bigger problem, you kind of resolve the conflict within 2 hours. And so when you make that comparison, it feels kind of odd. It doesn't feel like the threat was really that imminent when you've given more screen time, more importance in storytelling to the other threat from 3 years ago. So yeah, overall, I had a hard time believing Doctor Strange that Wanda was gonna cause problems. And as a result, I didn't really feel that invested or at the edge of my seat. Again, good movie, but has its flaws. Another thing I've seen people criticize is the fact that this movie has bad CGI. Now, I would like to address that, and I don't think the movie has bad CGI. I think the problem is the fact that this movie has uninspiring CGI, meaning these are the things that you've seen before in MCU movies, and this is what you kind of expect. And it's fair, right? Because you've had, over 20 MCU movies, over 10 years of content, and the CGI has, while improved in quality, in terms of creativity, it stayed mostly the same. Now, the original Doctor Strange was a memorable movie in what it tried to do with its CGI between the mirror dimension and the buildings flipping upside down and stuff. Surprisingly, you don't get to see that here, which again is fine, but it would have been cool. But the CGI definitely feels held back, uncreative, uninnovative, and not really pushing the field forward. So those are all the criticisms that I have of Doctor Strange and what other people have had that I shared my opinion on. Again, some people have said that the movie has too much content, which I kind of agree with, and that could have easily been solved with good pacing, which it lacks. So pacing is definitely an issue where you go from high moments to low moments very frequently. Another issue is the fact that the threat doesn't feel that imminent, that big. And lastly, of course, you have some CGI stuff that really doesn't feel anything special at all. But overall, I did have a fun time with the movie, and more importantly, the people around me had a fun time. The theater was having a joy, and that's all that matters, right? Whether or not it makes a big difference in the MCU, I don't think this movie makes a big difference in the MCU. In fact, people were touting that the big multiverse movies was going to change things forever, but I don't think it did. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time.